Hello everyone, welcome to episode 4 of Duty Complete, although this episode we will focus on what not to do as a healer. As always, Duty Complete is not necessarily a guide on the duty, but rather a look at the healer's role within the duty. I'll make sure to leave a link so you can check out an actual guide as well. This episode we are taking a look at Alexander Fists of the Father, or otherwise known as Alexander Floor 1. The first part of this duty we are fighting Faust and his mini ads called Strum Dolls. The only thing anyone really needs to know here is that the off-tank will grab all of the ads and the DPS will focus on Faust only. So as a healer, you could throw the off-tank and add Loquium or Regen and make sure the main tank is healed as well. Turning on Clerk Stance as needed and placing Shadow Flare on Faust will help your raid group for this rather straightforward fight. So right away, if you remember last episode, we have a Dragoon in our party and they use Battle Litany, and I go ahead and use Ad Loquium with Deployment Tactics, although this fight could have gone a little bit better because, as you'll see, I make two rookie mistakes. The first mistake that I make, and you'll see this a couple of times, is that I attempt to heal in Clerk Stance. I don't continue to do it. I realize fairly quickly that what I've done, and turn it off and then resume healing, but nonetheless I did forget to turn those off, and that's a mistake and an improvement, so for other people, don't do that. And the next thing I do is not DPS within my rotation, and I just use Broil. So if you remember last episode and then you watch my how to DPS on Scholar, you'll know that spamming Broil is not the best way to go about it, but that's what I do here, and I should not have done that. But, however, on the other hand, Scholar DPS, or any healer DPS, is just an added bonus to your party. Next, let's talk about the Oppressor. Like I mentioned before, this isn't exactly a guide, so let's just go ahead and jump straight to what you need to know as a healer. First, you should note that this fight can be rather long, and there's a lot of the same AoEs and same patterned mechanics to deal with. As a healer, you might suffer from healer tunnel vision, as have I, and get bored with the fight. I've done this, and it's easy to do in my opinion. My next tip is to try and stay centered to the room. Whether you're on the left or the right of the room is fine, but I usually try to stay center to both oppressors. This helped me avoid ads, which if you watched a guide, applies minimum and should be avoided, which in this video you'll notice that I do not do. Next is the nukes. After the nukes are taken care of, you'll see a room-wide AoE from the oppressors. Just like in Trials and our last episode, move to where the AoE is turning blue to avoid the most damage. Scholars should throw up Sacred Soil, and if you've got it, you should use Indomitability. So let's talk about the things that I do wrong in specific here. Not because I want to point them out to you or anything, it's more of just so that you know the things that I've done wrong in the past and learn from them. And me telling you the things that I've done wrong in past duties will actually help me improve as a healer as well. So one of the things that I've noticed after watching this video myself several times is that I don't use Indomitability after the nukes have fallen, and during Gunnery Pod, I see Gunnery Pod, but I don't use Sucker or any abilities to help with that. I just heal afterwards. And if you can keep in mind the rotations that these two oppressors do, then you should be able to know when Gunnery Pod comes up and use Sucker or some kind of ability to help mitigate the damage. I don't do this here, primarily just because it's easier just to heal afterwards instead of paying attention to exactly what the boss is doing. Other things that I do wrong here is I stand in AoEs and I get minimumed a few times, and I notice that the other healer and a lot of the DPS do this too. Just avoiding those the ads and the little purple pool of AoEs that it drops after it dies will help you from getting minimum. And don't quote me on this, but I believe that minimum actually reduces your healing potency as well. So it's just a good idea to stay out of that entirely. Now let's talk about AoEs here for a second, especially for me, and I know other people have had this problem before in the past. Sometimes, network permitting, you can't avoid those AoEs. For instance, for me, during this fight, this video that you're watching, I had a ping of 750 ms. So what that basically means is that I had about a 1 second or less time to move out of AoEs, and I do this thing that I think a lot of healers are victim of at one point in time in their career as a healer, is what I like to call healer tunnel vision. We're used to DPSing and tunnel visioning there, and just doing your rotations and not paying attention to AoEs or anything like that. But for me, healer tunnel vision is different, and I think that a lot of people suffer from this too. And basically, what this means is that you see your spells, you see the AoE, but you continue to cast a heal because you think that, oh, I need to get this heal off and I'm sacrificing myself. Or you just don't see that AoE because you're so focused on healing the tank, you're looking at his bar and his health and your spells, rather than moving out of the way of the AoE. So in this fight, it's actually really important not to do this because there's a few AoEs that hurt a lot, and you'll see that one of them actually applies a debuff to me, a dot, and I stand in that. Partly because of my network, and I just couldn't even avoid those in the first place, and part of it was because of, a lot of it was because of that healer tunnel vision. So not doing that, and I understand that sometimes standing in AoEs is, network permitting, not a fun thing to do, or that you can actually avoid.
Waking dream, no hope for advance. You see, mortal core is serving not but a spring. Unwind, too slow, too quick, too much to believe. Words of fantasy, you fail the test. Ever forging all new fantasies, creating more mess. Direct through this brick machine with all of the rest. DC, dying, electricity.
Well, I think that just about does everything for me on this video, at least. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below, and see you next time, scholars.